Hello friends. In this episode, we will learn the reasons why your car doesn't want to start. Enjoy watching. If the car doesn't want to start, remember what you replaced or fixed last. Probably, that can be the reason. Any troubleshooting needs to start with a simple one. Don't forget to use personal protective equipment. In case of any doubt regarding the repair, read or watch the instruction manual for your car. It is recommended to connect the Autoscanner to the car's OBD2 connector first. It will help you check the engine control module and sensors for errors. Nowadays, you can find a scanner in almost all auto shops. The OBD2 connector is located beneath the steering wheel or in the console box. Let's imagine the situation. You want to start the car, but instead of the normal starting sequence, you hear only that sound. What does that sound mean? That means the starter is turning the engine more than normal, but the engine doesn't start. What could be the reason? Reason 1. Immobilizer. The main purpose of this device is to protect your car against thieves. Once you insert the key into the lock cylinder and turn it to the ignition position, synchronization between the immobilizer elements starts. If one of the elements fails, the system starts to cut off electrical circuits in the car. Problem solution. If you see a blinking sign of a key, car with the key, or car with the lock, on the car's dashboard when trying to start the engine, try to do the next steps. Take the spare ignition key and repeat the start. Replace the battery in the ignition key or key fob. Try to fix the ignition lock cylinder. Bring it to the key workshop with the ignition key. Reason 2. Fuel oil cutoff switch. This is a safety device that shuts down the power supply to the fuel pump relay in case the vehicle crashes. Thus, the fuel pump immediately stops. With time, it becomes more sensitive. In some cases, it can activate when you close the hood or driver's door with much effort. Problem solution. Find the switch and push it by finger. After, try to start the engine. If the engine starts, replace the switch. Usually, it is located in the area of the steering wheel column. Reason 3. Fuel pump. Usually, the fuel pump is installed inside the fuel tank. The main purposes of the pump are to supply and circulate the fuel in the system. When the pump fails, the system becomes unpressurized. Fuel doesn't reach injectors, and the engine can't be started anymore. Problem solution. First of all, ensure that the pump starts and is working for some time before starting the engine. The pump activates in two of the most common ways. The first is when you open the driver's door, and the second is when you turn the key to the ignition position. It's done to pressurize the fuel system before the engine starts. Carefully listen to the noise of the pump under the back seat of the car. It looks like this one. If that noise is absent, try to do the next steps. Remove the fuel pump fuse and check it with a multimeter. It is usually located in the fuse box of the engine compartment or passenger compartment. Disconnect the fuel pump relay. For its functioning, check it with a multimeter and a 9-volt battery. Usually, the relay is located in the same place as the fuel pump fuse or in the area around the steering wheel column. Reason 4. High-pressure fuel pump. Some cars can have two pumps in the fuel system. One is low pressure, and the other is high pressure. The first pump is supplying fuel to the second one. The second pump does the injection directly into the cylinders. If a high-pressure pump is out of order, the engine will not start. Problem solution. Remove the pump from the engine. Inspect it for cracks and defects. Carry out the procedure for the pump's component measurements mentioned in the instruction manual for your car. If the measurements are different, bring the pump to the workshop for reconditioning or replace it with a new one. Let's imagine another case. You turn and keep the ignition key for starting the car, but under the hood, you hear only that sound. And when you return it, you hear another one. What does that sound mean? That means that the starter engages with the engine but can't turn it. What could be a reason? Reason 1. Battery. The main purpose of the battery is to drive the starter, which starts the engine. If the battery is drained, starting the engine is impossible. Problem solution. Most modern batteries have a charger indicator. The green color indicates that the battery is charged. The black indicator means you need to charge the battery. The white means the battery needs to be replaced. check the condition of your indicator. If the indicator is absent, check the battery with a multimeter. Generally, for a charged battery, the range has to be between 12.2 and 13.2 volts. But, of course, for some batteries, there can be some special requirements. If you need to start a drained battery, use a jump starter or jumper cables. Check the lead posts. If they are oxidized, clean them. Often, that can be the reason for the starter clicking. Check the terminals tightening. If you have a maintainable battery, ensure that the level of electrolyte is correct. Measure the density of the electrolyte with an areometer. Ensure it is within range. If discharging of the battery repeats every day, check the car's circuits for current leak. If the current leak has a value greater than 50 milliamperes, rectify the problem. If it's less, replace the battery. There are two more examples of discharged batteries. The first. The second. When you turn the ignition key to start the car, you hear nothing under the hood. Reason 2. Starter. As we said before, a starter is needed for starting the engine. If some part of the starter is worn, starting the engine is impossible. Problem solution. Carefully inspect the starter. Check the tightening of the connections. Ensure they are not oxidized or rusty. If the connections are in good condition, then remove and disassemble the starter. Thoroughly clean all parts with an electrical cleaner and wipe with a rag. Visually inspect the elements for damage. Carry out the measurements of the parts mentioned in the repair manual for your car. Pay special attention to the brushes and rotor. If the battery is in good condition but the starter is only creating clicking noise, try to do the next. Turn the ignition key 3 to 4 times in fast mode to engine start position. Sometimes that can help. But as fast as possible, find the reason for the malfunction of the starter. One more very common problem. The engine wants to start but can't. Reason 1. Fuel pressure regulating valve. There are a few common places for the installation of the valve. The first is the fuel rail in the engine compartment. The second is the fuel pump in the fuel tank. The function of that valve is to support constant fuel pressure in the fuel system. When the mechanism inside the valve does not work properly, the pressure in the fuel system can drop. By the path of least resistance, most fuel returns to the tank. Only a small quantity of fuel reaches the injectors in that case. Problem solution. If you have this type of valve, inspect the vacuum hose from the inlet manifold of the engine to it. Ensure the hose is elastic and doesn't have any cracks or damage. If you have a valve of this type, inspect the condition of the O-ring. It must be elastic too and not have any damages. Integrate the manometer into the supply fuel pipeline. Check the fuel pressure when the starter is turning the engine. Write down the readings of the manometer. After that, integrate the same manometer into the return line. Do the same as you did before. Write down the readings of the other manometer. Compare the pressures. If they are almost the same, try to replace the valve. Reason 2. Throttle. The purpose of that device is to control the exact amount of air for the engine combustion process at different loads. Difficult movement of the throttle drive and dirt inside can make the engine start impossible. Problem solution. Remove the intake air manifold and check the condition of the throttle. If there is too much dirt, remove the throttle from its place and carefully clean it with throttle body cleaner or a similar substitute. After the cleaning procedure, install the throttle back using a new gasket. It is recommended to carry out the throttle body alignment after the installation procedure. Reason 3. Timing belt. This part takes one of the main places in the starting and correct work of the engine. It drives the camshaft pulleys, which in turn rotate the inlet and exhaust camshafts for the opening and closing inlet and exhaust valves of the engine. Due to time, the belt and its tensioner become worn. Through the camshafts and crankshaft overworn seals, engine oil can drip on the belt. That can be a reason for the jump camshaft drive pulley for one or even more teeth, especially during the start. After that, the combustion process becomes wrong, and the engine can't start. Problem solution. Open the protective cover of the belt. Inspect to see if there are no oil leakages from the lip seals of the camshafts and crankshaft. If there are any, find the overworn seal and replace it. Carry out the alignment of the timing belt. In conclusion, For your car to be in good condition and to avoid trouble, don't buy extremely cheap spare parts. You can use good substitutes that are very similar in price to the original parts. But the best is to use genuine spares. Follow the maintenance schedule for your car and enjoy driving. Thank you for watching. See you.